Torah, Parshas Korach. This is a Chassidic discourse by the Alter Rebbe on Korach, Parach Mata Aaron, the story of that it flowered the stick of Aaron when it was the rebellion against Moshe. And the question is who Hashem is choosing as to be the Kohen Gadol. So it says he should put all the sticks of all the tribes, and whatever stick will flower will be a sign, a divine sign that that's the person that Hashem chooses. And the story is that Parach Mata Aaron, that Aaron, Moshe's brother, the stick of Aaron blossomed by Yigmol Shkedim, and it gave out almonds. That's the story. That was the indication. That was the story of the miracle that allowed everyone to see that indeed Aaron was chosen to be the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. Love Shkedim, to understand why particular Shkedim, why particular almonds. Like the Medrash has, and the Medrash discusses this in the beginning of Parshas Korach. Hine Shkedim here Maram Legamar Yosem Kol Peirs it was Gvazai Gavit from Viteino that Shkedim almonds are the ripened the quickest of all fruits and vegetation and all types of growths. Shekul Mishlam Zman Rav Yosem Shkedim. All other things, in order for it to ripen from the time that it starts blossoming until it actually ripens into a complete fruit that is edible, takes a longer period of time. Almonds, on the other hand, take very quickly. As Chazal say, the sages say, that a shkedim, an almond, from the time that it just pierces out to appear to become a fruit until it actually completes itself to become a complete fruit, it takes 21 days. Chaf Aleph Yom. Chaf Aleph Yom is Gmat Shem Eka, the name of Eka, the name of process. The process is a 21-day process. Therefore, it's called Shake. Therefore, in Hebrew, it's called Shkedim. Shake means quickly, because it's the word Shake means something that's done quickly. Like the pasuk says in Yirmiyah, the beginning of the book of Jeremiah, the book of Yirmiyah. The pasuk says that Hashem tells Yirmiyah the prophet, the Navi, to take a makal shake, to take a stick, an almond stick, a branch from an almond tree, and throw it into the water. Because Hashem says, the prophet, he hears the prophetic voice saying that this is because Hashem says that I will bring very quickly the words that I say is going to happen, which is the destruction of the first base of Mikdash, the first temple. So therefore, the reason why it's Shkedim, the reason why it was proof that that Aaron HaKohen was chosen to be the priest, to be the Kuna, is Kuna. This is the idea of Kuna. Kuna, the idea of priesthood, represents swiftness. In general, Chazal say, the sages say, that Kohenim is Zrizimheim. The Kohenim do things with alacrity, with quickness. So Kuna generally represents a process of alacrity, of quickness. So that's why Shakad, Hashem, the sign that was shown, was something that was done very quickly, which is that it ripens very quickly and it shows up in 21 days. Now it goes a little bit deeper. The word Aaron, the letters of the word Aaron, has the same letters that means to see. That through Aaron there was a revealing of all the lights. What does it mean to see? What is seeing? So in general, the difference between seeing and hearing, which are the most, let's say, the most important senses of the human being, and there's a big argument amongst some of the greats of history and the Gedolei Rishonim, what is the most elevated sense or most important sense? Is the sense of hearing, the sense of seeing, but certainly the sense of hearing and the sense of seeing is very much defined of what it means to be a human being and experience life through sight and through hearing. But what's the difference between seeing and hearing? That the process of hearing is that you dissect things from pratim, from details, into a general, which means you hear a sound at a time, a syllable at a time, each syllable creates one particular sound, but streamed together creates a word. And then each word in a singularity doesn't really mean anything, but words together become a sentence. So the way you hear is that you hear things first in small pockets of information, in details, and then it streams together, and then you get the entire understanding of what the person is trying to tell you when someone is speaking to you. So the process of listening is from pratim to the klal, from specific, from details, and then eventually you get the entire picture. That's the way hearing occurs. Seeing, on the contrast, is to see first the klal, first the general, and then you hone in your vision, and you're looking at a particular thing. Let's say you're driving, or you climb up a mountaintop, and then a vista opens up in front of you. So what you see with your vision is really the entirety of this image, and then you want to penetrate your vision and you want to focus, so you'll focus on a particular detail. But the way we see things is that it's seen in a collective way. It's seen in its entirety first, which means seeing, the process of seeing, the actual process of seeing, and this is where Aaron HaKohen is connected to the source of blessing. To see something is in a way is to bless it, because when you hear something, because hearing happens from details to the general, you can hear something negative, and then you focus on the negative. Let's say an example, someone says something to you, and you're only hearing exactly what they're saying. So if you're only hearing exactly what they're saying, the person says, by the way, you're a terrible person. So it's something very nasty to you. So when you hear it, there's an immediate snap judgment and say, okay, this person is like an ugly person, etc. But then, if you think about it, you say, why did this person tell me this thing? Maybe that's just one dimension, the fact that they said it, but maybe they're deeply hurt now. Maybe I insulted them. Maybe it's not my fault, but maybe it's their fault. Maybe they're going through a very hard day. Maybe they lost a lot of money today. Maybe they had a big fight with a loved one. There could be other parts that there's other dimensions of themselves that because of that they spoke these words. So the moment you're able to see the bigger picture, or let's just say the multidimensional picture of the narrative, it allows you to be more compassionate. So if you see a person, if you're just a snap judgment and you're just seeing a particular thing, which is the paradigm of hearing, then there's immediate judgment. But by seeing something, the definition of seeing something correctly is to see the entirety of it. So the entirety of it means when you're seeing something, if your relationship to life is through eyes, so to speak, through seeing, you always allow yourself to see the bigger picture, even whether it's through hearing or seeing, that doesn't really matter. But what you're allowing yourself is to see the multidimensionality of the reality that's being presented to you. So when a person looks at something, so if you look at something and you immediately focus into the negative, then you're not actually seeing the entirety of it. Let's say it a little differently. An ayin hara, let's say an evil eye. What's the definition of an evil eye? An evil eye, like the Chida writes, is not evil eyes, but it's a singular, evil eye. Because what it means is, if you close one eye, by definition, you stop seeing dimensions. So if you're seeing with one eye, you see the world as a surface, and without depth and dimensions. But if you're looking with two eyes allows you to see depth and to see dimensions, and therefore distances. So the idea of seeing with one eye is when I'm just looking at it in a one-dimensional way. This person did this to me, and therefore, this is the response that I should have. This person said this negative thing to me, or this person is acting very negatively, and I'm only seeing that particular thing. But when you see with two eyes, which means a full type of seeing, you're already seeing depth. You're seeing multidimensionality. When you're seeing multidimensionality, that's already a type of positive seeing, because you're seeing all the various different angles. So just the mere fact that Aaron represents the idea of seeing is already a source of blessing. This is also what the Ramban talks about, that everyone had to be brought in front of Aaron, all the priests and the Levim had to be brought in front of Aaron and Moshe, l'schusu l'chaim, that they should be seen by the tzaddik, seen by Moshe Rabbeinu, seen by Aaron, especially Moshe is connected to the Bechinas Riyah as well, to the idea of seeing, that they were able to see l'schusu l'chaim, for merit and for benefit and for life, a type of seeing, a seeing with both eyes, seeing with an understanding that every single thing that you're seeing has multidimensional, has multiple levels of dimensions and multiple depths to it. That's the type of seeing that allows for blessing. So Aaron HaKohen, the idea of Aaron, represents the type of seeing which is the idea of blessing, which is a revealing. And this type of conduit of blessing is that Aaron was this type of seeing, which comes to Aaron, which is the source of blessing, was a blessing that allows for a drawing down from its original source, from its spiritual realm, to be affected on a physical realm instantaneously without any type of blockages. So you see something, again, by definition, seeing is an act of not blockages if you're seeing correctly. When you're hearing something, it's not necessarily true that you're actually hearing the full thing correctly. Because if someone's talking to you and you cut them off mid-sentence and you stop hearing mid-sentence, then you really didn't hear what they had to say. Or if you even shut down, when a person starts talking to you and you shut down mid-sentence in your own mind, then you don't actually understand what they're trying to say. But by definition, hearing is you see the entirety. So it means that there is no blockages in the idea of seeing. That's why the Ari talks about that there's no nefila in Riyah, there's no shiras hakelim, there's no breaking of the vessels in the world of seeing, which is a type of seeing, because seeing is the entirety of the thing instantaneously. So Aaron HaKohen, Aaron is the conduit of the source of blessings that draws down the blessings from on high to the lower world. Aaron HaKohen's blessing was in a way that there was no ikuvim, there was no blockages. Why would there be blockages? So it says like this. The Rebbe says like, that Hashem, the pasuk, when we say in the blessings after the meal, we say that Hashem is azanas ha'olam kula b'tuvei. Hashem nurtures the world with His kindness, which means that there's tuvei v'chaz elyonim. There is kindness, divine kindness that's transcendent, higher, above, that is nishpa, that comes down to the physical world. But in order for it to get down to the physical world, it has to go many different levels. It has to go through many different states. Until it becomes dense. And then until it becomes dense, and it becomes physical blessing. But Aaron, because since he represents the idea of seeing, which is the idea of light, that's the Aaron represents the blessing that comes down immediately. What does this mean? This means like this, that we're saying that there is Hashem is a teva toivet lahetiv. Hashem is bituvay. There's a kindness of the divine kindness of giving. But when a person receives kindness from the Creator, that's rooted in a type of spiritual kindness, what a person really needs in their lives is when they're asking, let's say, for sustenance, and they're asking to be nourished, they're asking that they should receive blessings, they should receive divine kindness in actual reality, which means that they should have bread on the table, they should have money in the bank, whatever, or health in their physical body. What they're asking is that the blessings should be drawn down into the physical material reality. Let's just try to give the conception of this idea. It doesn't, let's start with the premise. It doesn't have to be this way. It's possible that there should not be a process in order for a spiritual revelation to be revealed in a physical plane should be instantaneously. It's possible for this process to happen instantaneously, and it's possible not to happen through processes. But the way that the world was created, the meta structure of the world, the inner structure of the creation was that Hashem creates the world in a way that we can understand it. So theoretically, the world could be created instantaneously, and every single process of the creation could come instantaneously, sort of like an instant combustion or some type of boom, and everything just emerges from infinity into finitude instantaneously in its complete form. That's a possibility because our Kadosh Baruch Hu is an Ninam Namnois. Hashem could do it. Hashem is infinite, and that's definitely a possibility. But the world was created in a way, like the Sha'ar Arius Gatali writes in the Agdama, and this is a very big principle in Avodas HaKodesh and other Svarim. It's a very strong principle in understanding the entire structure of Sifrei Sod, the entire structure of all Kabbalistic knowledge, and all the structures of the worlds, there's inner worlds and spiritual realms. Like, why does it have to be this way? The answer is it doesn't have to be this way, but it is this way because of B'sar Echsa Lekah, that we see Hashem through our own flesh, which means that Hashem wants us. There's a mitzvah, Das Hashem Elokecha. There's a mitzvah to know Hashem, Kaviyachol, to know God, and really, how could we know if we're finite and Hashem is infinite, and even infinity is a description, so Hashem is beyond infinity. So how could we know it? So the answer is because Hashem created the world in a way that we should know it, that we should understand creation, and this is a fundamental understanding of the entire structure of Seder Shtalshelus, of the whole order of creation, which is important to understand. That not that it has to be this way. It didn't have to be that Atzilus comes to Bria and Bria comes to Yitzir, etc. That one thing emerges out of the next until it becomes dense matter. It didn't have to come from energy to become matter and go through processes from spiritual energy to physical energy to matter. It could be instantaneously from spiritual energy or life force to immediate physicality. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world in a way that life actually emerges through. First there's a revealing of the potential. Then there's a revealing of the chomer, the substance, which is the world of Bria. Then there's the world of Yitzir, which is formation, which is the world of form. And then there's the world of Tikkun, which is the world of completion. So chomer, surah, Tikkun. That's the way the process has to go. Or Bria, Yitzir, Asiyah. That's the way the world was created in a way of processes, so we can understand it. So now let's think about this in terms of the divine blessing. Divine blessing is rooted within the divine. In order for this divine blessing to penetrate this planet or our experiences of the manifest reality, it has to go through a process where something that is completely formless, spiritually formless, becomes becomes more condensed or congealed into, as a metaphor, until it becomes something that is manifest in our life with an actual blessing. Let's say this a little differently. If, let's say, there's a kindness, there's a chesed, there's a hashpah of chesed, there's a revealing of chesed, of divine kindness into your life. If you receive it on the world of Atzilus, which is on a totally purely spiritual realm, that would mean that you will experience kindness, expansiveness on a spiritual realm, which means you'll have the experience, the spiritual experience. Let's say if you requested wealth, let's say for sustenance, you will feel spiritually nourished. It doesn't necessarily translate that you're being physically nourished and you will have food to eat. It doesn't necessarily translate that way because you receive it on a spiritual realm. That would be like receiving Hashem's kindness in the world of Atzilus, in the world of spirituality. If you receive the divine kindness, and so it originates in divine kindness as a revealing of spiritual kindness, then it goes into something that's called mental kindness, which is the world of Bria, which is if the kindness drops to another state, it becomes kindness in the world of Bria of a mental state, that means you will intellectually, cerebrally, in your mind, you will feel nourished. You'll feel intellectually satisfied. So that's a type of nourishment. And so it's not a spiritual nourishment, even though it's connected. It's not a spiritual nourishment, but it's more like a mental nourishment. That's another type of divine kindness. And then the chesed drops even to another state where it's not only a spiritual kindness or a mental kindness, a type of intellectual satisfaction, but it becomes an emotional satisfaction, which is the world of Yetzirah. It becomes an emotional satisfaction, is emotionally you'll feel satisfied. You have good relationships, you'll feel loved, You feel like you can give love, however that translates in your emotional state, you're going to feel nurtured on an emotional state. It still doesn't mean that you're physically nurtured. So then the blessing goes from a spiritual realm where spiritual nourishment to mental nourishment to emotional nourishment and then finally to physical nourishment. So it's actually going through processes. Again, it didn't have to go through processes, but that's the way the Creator created the world, in a way that goes through processes. So when we say that Hashem is a tuvay and is chen chesed, Hashem gives nourishment, now that's an absolute truth. But what is that nourishment? If it remains in the world of Atzilus, it remains on the spiritual realm that its own is going to remain in our experience of that. It's going to be a type of spiritual nourishment. If it's going to drop to another step, it's going to drop a little lower, it's going to become mental nourishment, intellectual nourishment, satisfaction on the level of our intelligence, which is also a type of nourishment. A lot of people feel unnourished intellectually, and then they feel nourished, and that's a very good experience, a very pleasant experience. Then if it drops even to a lower level, it becomes emotional nourishment that will feel emotionally nourished. And then if it drops even to the fourth level, it'll become physical nourished. These are the four steps, which is the blessing comes from the infinite one, and then it has to go through 4 grades in order to finally reach us on a physical level. If you're asking for bread on the table, and you bless Hashem as a tuva v'chein v'chesed, Hashem gives nourishment, yes, that could be on a spiritual realm, it could be on a mental realm, it could be on an emotional realm, or it can be on a physical realm. And the blessing, so to speak, can get stuck in one of those states. This is similar to what the Arizal speaks about. The Arizal speaks about different types of people, and he says the truth is that every single person's soul is rooted in Adam Kadmon, in primordial man, which is even higher than Atzilus, and then like the place of complete unity. And then he says there are 4 types of people, very, very generically speaking, but there are basically 4 dominant types of characters in this world. There are people that are very spiritual and very spiritual and artistic, let's say, very flighty and very non-material type of people. These are spiritual people. There are people that are very cerebral and intellectual and rational, intellectual people. That's their resended, that's who they are, they're intellectuals. Then there are people that are very emotional. They have not a very high IQ, but a very developed EQ. There are people that are emotionally dominant. And then there are people that are very physical, very practical, and very earthy. These are the 4 types of people. So the Ari says, how is it possible there are 4 types of people if everyone is rooted in the exact same source in Adam Kadmon, in the primordial mean? So the answer is that there's a cover, there's a way station, and there's a blockage, so to speak, that some people, their soul goes from Adam Kadmon and it stops in the world of Atzilus, which is the spiritual realm, and then it goes very quickly through the other 3 realms and it becomes birth. So this person has a spiritual type of soul, which means the neshama of Atzilus. Generally a tzaddik or someone that's a developed spiritual person has this spiritual type of soul, a person that's drawn to spirituality, drawn to sense of transcendence, drawn to the emptiness and nothingness of creation, something that's higher. That's a person that's born with a world of neshama Atzilus, even though it passes through the world of Bria Yitzir Asiyah, but it goes very quickly. It's sort of like a train that stops in the world of Atzilus, and it collects the quality of Atzilus, that the quality of spirituality, and then is birthed into this world. That's one type of soul. Then there are other types of souls that go very quickly, pass through the world of Atzilus. It's like the train that passes over that station of Atzilus and stops at the world of Bria. It stops at the world of Bria, which is an intellectual space, inner intellectual space, a place of Bina. Then this soul picks up the residue, picks up the energy, picks up the qualities of the world of Bria, and then drops straight into Asiyah and passes through Yitzira and just drops into Asiyah. So then this person will be an intellectual type of person. Then there's a soul that passes over the station of Atzilus and passes over Bria, the spiritual realm, and the mental intellectual realm, and stops at the world of Yitzira, which is emotional. And therefore and that's where they pick up who they are from that world of Yitzira. Therefore, they're emotional people. And some people go through Atzilus, Bria, Yitzira, go very quickly. They stop in the spiritual Asiyah, that's the Asiyah Ruchni, in the spiritual realm of physicality. Therefore, they become very physical type of people, tangible people, earthy people like to use their hands, etc. And they drop into this world, and therefore they're physical people. So in other words, everything has to go from the highest realm into the lowest realm, but sometimes it stops or makes more permanent stops at certain stations, as it were, and therefore it collects and becomes more that reality when it drops into this world. This is obviously a metaphor, or because it's not higher and lower, but that's the way to understand it. So the same thing also with blessings. There are blessings, when we say Hashem gives us a blessing for kindness, that starts in the world of Atzilus, which is like it's a spiritual kindness, a spiritual nourishment. So it's possible it stops in the world of spiritual nourishment, and then what we receive is only from the spiritual nourishment, because there's an there's a blockage that it doesn't pass through the world of Bria, which is mental nourishment or emotional nourishment or physical nourishment, and therefore you were blessed for nourishment, but you only receive it on a spiritual realm, or only on a mental realm, or only on an emotional realm, or not on a physical realm, or on all realms, which is ultimately what we want, that we should receive everything. So this is what he says. This is what happens with Aaron. Aaron was able to give the blessings in a way that the blessings went from Atzilus Bria Tzia, and there was no blockages that didn't allow it to enter into these worlds. But the blessing was a spiritual blessing, a mental blessing, an emotional blessing, and a physical blessing, and it manifests into the physical world instantaneously. It went through all the passages, it picked up everything it needed, and it came to this world without any blockages. That is the reason why it's shkaden. That is the reason why it is almonds, because it represents something that's done very quickly, not instantaneously, because that's not what we're saying. It's not instantaneously. It's a process, but a process of very quickly, which is Shem Eka, which is the 21 days. This is why the Kohen, when the Kohen gives the blessing, one of the things that is brought down in the Rishonim, and the Beis Yosef brings it down as well, that the Kohen should make 5 avir, 5 spaces within their hand. They open up their hands in a particular way that there's 5 slots between their 2 hands that are connected to each other. And they also hold their hands downwards, not upwards, which usually when you receive a blessing, you imagine that you receive the blessing with your hands open. That would be a posture of receiving a blessing. And if the priest, the Kohen, is receiving the blessing from on high, you would imagine that he receives the blessing and then turns his hand downward to give over the blessings. But over here, the Kohen actually puts his hands downward, and he opens up these open spaces between his hands, which metaphorically and symbolically what that represents, and the Kohen has to be that clean vessel, that's what it has to be, ba'ava, has to be done with love, is that the blessing is coming through them. That the Kohen is not holding on to the blessing and then giving over the blessing to the people that they're blessing, but like Aaron, they're a conduit, a clean conduit, a clean tube that's allowing the blessings to flow directly from on high, all the way penetrating all the way to the physical world. This is the structure of the blessings of the Kohen, and according to this, the Alter Rebbe explains a question that it says that the question that's asked. It's a Tosfos question. Tosfos asked the question on Shabbos, and also the Gemara talks about in Rosh Hashanah. There are 3 different opinions when a person is judged. One opinion is, when a person is judged, is on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. There's another opinion that says that a person is judged, a person is judged every single day. Then the Gemara says another third opinion is a person is judged every moment. Now the Gemara says that even the matzah, we daven every single day because we hold that a person is judged every single day. But the Alter Rebbe wants to understand. He says everyone agrees. Two things that everyone agree on. And this is what we have to understand. 2 things that everyone agrees is that number 1 is everyone agrees that Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is the day of judgment. That everything a person will receive for the coming year is written and sealed on the day of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Besides Shabbos and Talmud Torah, but everything that a person receives for the coming year is received on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, which means all the blessings that you're going to receive, all the spiritual blessings that you're going to receive, all the physical blessings, the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, like Dari says, the first day is for the spirituality, there's Mishmah Likutei Yaakov, and the judgment for the God of Yaakov, which means how much spirituality you're going to have for the year. The Chayk is the next day, how much physicality you can have for the year. So this happens on Rosh Hashanah. So everyone agrees with that opinion. On the other hand, we also say that you daven every single day. You say, Baruch Aleinu Hashanah Zos, that Hashem give us blessings for sustenance. But you just, Rosh Hashanah, everything was blessed for. So how does these 2 things reconcile? So the Alter Rebbe says, this will reconcile through the understanding we just said. Because sometimes the blessing, on what happens on Rosh Hashanah, is that on Rosh Hashanah, the blessings come down on a spiritual realm, which means you receive in the bank, so to speak, in the spiritual bank, all the blessings. But that but then it's possible that it waits in the way station until it comes to you, which means that on Rosh Hashanah, what happens is, on Rosh Hashanah, is all the spiritual blessings, all the physical blessings that you're going to have, enters into a spiritual space, as it were, and therefore you receive the blessings. But the blessings then have to go down, like we say, into the four realms. It has to go as a spiritual blessing, it has to go onto a mental blessing, it has to go to an emotional blessing, and to a physical blessing. And that's what you do every single day. What you do, if to use the analogy, is the money that you're going to receive for the coming year is in a bank. What you have to do every single day is put in your card and make sure it's working to pull the money out of the bank. But even on a deeper level, it's not just pulling the money out of the bank. It's making sure that the money is dropped, or the blessing goes from the spiritual realm, enters into the emotional, to the mental realm, into the world of Bria, into the world of Yitzir, which is the emotional level, into the world of Siyah, that it received the blessings into your physical life. And that is the way to understand the same process, that every single day is a judgment. This is what happens every single day. Every single day, the judgment is to receive these blessings. On Rosh Hashanah, it's the general, and then every single day you're receiving the blessings. However, this is true with all blessings through the entire year, for all the blessings. However, with the blessings of the Kohen, however, with the blessings of a Kohen, which is also the idea of Aaron HaKohen, but every person is a Kohen. The Kohen is in the place of Aaron, is the blessings go directly from the highest spiritual realms into the most material levels, and it occurs very quickly. The process goes very quickly. And that's what we say in Berachas Kohen, the blessing of the Kohen Yirech, Hashem Yishmerecha. Hashem should bless you, and says, Chazal say, what does it mean he should bless you? He should bless you with money. Yirech b'mammon. Yirech b'bana, with your children. Bana chaya, that a person should have good livelihood and should have healthy children. V'yishirechem en azikin, a person should be protected from any negative forces. This is because the blessing that comes down through the Kohen comes down immediately from the spiritual realm, and it immediately affects everything also on the physical level. These are bracha, bana chayim, zoyna. It affects you on a spiritual realm, on a physical realm, with blessings for children and health and sustenance on a physical realm. And also, Yarasham Panav Elecha, and Yaris Panim. But it's also on a spiritual realm, which means it's not just a spiritual blessing that comes down and this affects itself only in Yivrech Hashem, in blessings and children and in livelihood, but it's also Yarasham Panav Elecha, it's Panim al Panim, that a face-to-face relationship with Hashem, which means that the blessing, the kindness, the blessings that the Kohen gives, which means the blessing that's passing through the Kohen, and does very, very quickly, is a blessing that is on the level of the spiritual dimension, which is that we feel close to Hashem, we feel kirvas Hashem, we feel panim apanim, we feel we're in dialogue, we're face-to-face in relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We don't feel that Hashem is turning his back on us, kaviyachol, as if we feel connected on a spiritual realm, on an emotional realm, on a mental realm, and even on a physical realm. And the reason for that is because Aaron HaKohen is the bechinas Riyah, Aaron is through the sight, and Aaron HaKohen is the level of Rav Chesed. Rav Chesed is a lot of kindness that breaks all the barriers and allows for the blessings to flow very, very quickly and to bless us in everything that we need. Begashmius and Beruchnis and Begashmius, spiritually and physically and spiritual. And that's why Parach Mat Aaron, that's why Aaron, to show that what Aaron was, what's the idea of Kahuna, what the idea of blessings of the Kohen is, what Kohen is, the Torah describes the miracle that happened is particularly through the idea of Shkedim, that it ripened very quickly to show that the blessings of Aaron, through the idea of Riyah, through the idea of seeing it, through the idea of Rav Chesed, is a blessing that comes down very quickly through the processes of the 21 days, of the 21 processes of the four realms, comes down into this world and affects us spiritually and emotionally and physically and on all levels of our being. All right, have a wonderful week.